Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to the IT Skills channel. In today's video, we have an exciting course for you, and this course is all about managing governance with Azure policies. We're going to also manage a lot of concept of how to make sure that users are not able to do things they're not supposed to do. So in this lab, we learn how to implement governance plans, how to make sure that Azure policies can ensure operational decisions are enforced across the organization. So in this case, we don't want people to just do whatever they want. We want to make sure people adhere to the policies of the organization. And this is all about how to make sure that everyone who's using or administering our Azure adhere to certain policies and restrictions. So right now, our organization footprint has grown considerably in the last. So right now, here's a scenario we have. We are the administrator for Contoso. Our organization footprint has grown considerably in the last year or so. During a recent audit, we discovered a substantial number of user resources that do not have a defined owner project, a cost center, or cost center. In order to improve management of Azure resources in our organization, we need to decide to implement the following functionality. Apply resource tag to attach important metadata to Azure resources. Enforce the use of resource tags for new resources by Azure policy. Update existing resources with resource tag. Use resource lock to protect configured resources. So overall, it's not something that's difficult, but it is requires a lot of planning. So our first thing is, again, we're gonna go ahead create our Azure tags in the portal. We're gonna enforce the tags, and then we're gonna apply the tags in Azure policy, and we're gonna configure test resource logs. That's what we're going to do. So without further ado, let's get started. So as you can see, we already saved some time by logging into Azure portal. That's great. Now we need to go ahead to Resource Manager by searching for Resource Manager, and then we can go ahead and open Resource Manager. So under Resource Manager, we will be creating a new resource. So we're gonna click Create. We get default by the subscription we're in. If we have multiple subscription, we can choose from the drop down menu. So we're gonna create this one in with the East US region, and we're gonna call it AZ104 RG2. Simple name, simple thing to follow. We're gonna hit next. We're gonna have tags option. This is great, and sometimes when you're creating something, you may just skip this. But in this case, we're not gonna skip this because we have a lot of resource label tags over here already. So we're gonna create a new one in here. We're gonna call this one Cost Center. Cost Center. That's what the name of it's gonna be. And then the value, it's going to be 00030 triple zero. Okay, so that way when we are trying to find these resources, we can identify it with this resource tag, and we're gonna hit next. This is a review of what we're going to be doing, the name of the resources, the tag, and everything else. If we agree with it, we're gonna hit create. The resource will be created shortly. If we refresh, we should see the resource should be created soon. So if we click on go to resources, in fact, here's a resource is created. Fine. So that's perfectly great. We are doing so far almost 10% of the lab. Now we're gonna need to jump into creating and enforcing with Azure policy. So Azure policy, we're just simply gonna go into the home page. We can search for policy, and here's the policy portal. Within the Azure policy, we have a numerous things to do, and we need to just focus on our core instruction over here. So in the policy, we need to focus on authorizing blade, and then we're going to focus on definitions. Now, before we do anything else, we can review a lot of this to on our own to understand what this is all about. Because this is we're doing this for a lab, we're gonna focus on built-in one rather than doing anything on our own. And we're not gonna, we're gonna search for the built-in and then take a look at it and make sure that there's a policy that complies to what we need. So in the built-in one, we already are there. So let's come over here to definition tab. You can see the policies. You can see the policy type. And so we're going to uncheck everything except check built-in on the policy type. And then from this point on, we can simply, go ahead and focus on require a tag, search for require tag, and then it should be able to find it. So let's search for this. Okay, it's searching. So here it is, require a tag, its value on Azure resources. That's what we wanted. There should be more, but this is what we saw so far. And we need to actually change the selection here. So instead of only seeing this one, we may need to leave it all and see what kind of policies we're gonna end up with. So instead of build all, we're gonna do all here, and then we're gonna do the over here. Instead of all, we're gonna maybe focus on tags only because we need to be able to find more. And so we end up with this still. Definition types all, everything is set to great. So we have this one is what we're gonna mess with it. But before we mess with this one, we need to actually, okay, so we're back. We had a technical difficulties, but we're back now. So we're gonna have the option to require tag on its value on the resource group. That's the option we have selected our own resources. So we have several options as you can see with the one you search for required tag. So this is what we got. So we're gonna focus on this first option, and then we're gonna assign this first option. So there's a couple of things we can do to assign this. We simply can double click it, or in this case we're gonna double click it or click it once, and we're gonna say assign policy. We can take a look at the policy for more information and what it does. If we have any question, this is the JSON query of the policy. With Azure, everything is you can do it with JSON with a command line CLI. So that's why you have this option. It always lets you preview this one, so you can automate this if you want to. So we're gonna hit assign policy. Now we have option to choose how we want to assign the policy and what is that gonna mean for us. So the first thing is first, the subscription is selected. That's our scope. We can change that. And then the resource group, if we were trying to select it, it should be on the actually, yeah, so we have everything selected by default. We didn't change anything else, so we're gonna continue until we get to so the basic property is all about the name. The name is fine, but we want to make sure that it's actually named something different. So yeah, so instead of that, the assignment name is gonna be completely different for us. So this is gonna be the assignment name. So we need to make sure that it's different from whatever we have as a default. So that way we can define this later on. So we're gonna require a cost center tag and its value resources. Description is going to be the same. And that now that we did this, everything else looks to be okay. So we're gonna need to go ahead and it's gonna be left enabled, which is good. Next, we're gonna click on the parameter. On the parameter, you have to click on the tag name, which is gonna be cost center, and then the value is gonna be 000, which is what we did earlier. Now that we did it, we are almost there. We're not gonna do anything remediation. We're gonna just leave it and create the policy. So we're just gonna hit, next, next, and in here we're gonna leave everything unchecked. Next. This is the review of the policy we're trying to create. That's a name. That's the resource policy definition name. And this is our assignment name, which is very important. That's how we can define the policy. And then we also have description and then the tag, which is very important. So now we're gonna hit create. So there you go. We got our resource policy created, or our Azure policy created, and we assign the tags to that. So next thing we're gonna need to do is, once this is done, which it looks like it's done already, perfect. We're gonna need to come home once more, and we're gonna come over here to storage account. So we're gonna search for storage account, and we're gonna create a policy for that as well. So on the storage account, we have several options. We're just gonna go on storage account. So in the storage account, we need to be able to create a new storage account. So let's see here. If I come over here to overview, hold on, let's come over here, search for storage account again. We have the classic and the new one. So we're trying to make sure that, yeah, we have the same policy. So we're going to hit create new storage account. And again, we get option to choose our policy, our subscription, our resource group. We don't have additional resource group, so that's fine. Now in the storage account name, we have option to go ahead and choose, and you're gonna find out that why we're doing this one. So in a second, we're gonna call this one AZ104 storage. Okay, so this is what we're gonna choose a name. If all as long as the name is not globally used, we should be good. So that's what we chose. We're gonna need to come over here. We're gonna hit review and create, and we should have an issue over here right away. So we're gonna hit go ahead and hit review, create. So we can see over here we have a validation error. This is what you wanted to see when we apply the policy. If you look at it, it says here AZ104 storage was disallowed by name policy, requires a policy cost center tag, and in its value on resources. So that's why it denied it, because it knows that we didn't follow our Azure policy of naming the resources. So that's why we do this thing, to make sure that no weird name is applied. And so that's why we protect our organization from having important resource name just weird, and then people using that or losing those resources or deleting those resources. So that's what we have. So next thing, as you can see, this is all great. The next thing we're gonna go back to is the policy, Azure policy. We're not gonna create a storage. We're just showing you how it looks like. But now let's go back to the home page. We're gonna come over here to the Azure policy. We're gonna find another policy again under the authoring. We're gonna go to definition, or in this case, assignments. We can take a look at it, what policies were assigned. You can see we assigned a policy over here. It's all pretty much what we did earlier. Now we're gonna need to do something else to make sure that we do mess with the policy definition. So we're gonna need to go ahead and click on the policy and delete the assignment. So let's come over here to this policy. We're going to delete the assignment because we're going to get rid of this policy and we're going to introduce a new policy. So let's come over here, delete assignment. You want to delete the assignment? Yes. The policy is deleted now. Now we're going to assign a new policy once more. Okay. Actually, come back here. So now we're going to come to the definition and then we're going to search for policy in the definition, inherit a tag from a resource group if missing. So that's what we're going to search for. And here's the group, the policy definition. So we're going to click on here. We're going to assign the policy and everything else looks fine. So now the only thing we need to rename is the assignment name. So we need to make it unique to us. That's the assignment name. Inherit tag cost center if its resource group is missing. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. By doing this, we won't get the same error we received earlier when we were trying to create the storage account. So that's what we're trying to avoid. So let's come over here. All right. So now we're going to do next on the tags. We're going to name this, the tag, the same thing, it's cost center. Next, everything is going to be, everything else is going to be, left disabled. In this case, we can create remediation if we want to and do all the things we need to do. So we're going to enable remediation. And then the policy template is going to be inherit tag from resource group if missing, which is what we want. So we're not done yet. Don't move so fast. Again, this is something we need to all of us do this together if you wanted to learn. And if you feel like I'm moving too slow in here, I'm covering this for basic beginner and everything else. Feel free to move ahead, but we wanted to make sure that this is, something that everybody got and everybody is able to grab in terms of knowledge. So we're not done here yet, but we're getting close. So let's hit next here. We're gonna leave this manage identity, the same default settings right now. We're not gonna mess with it. Everything else is fine here. We're gonna hit next. Next. So everything is perfectly here. Now the tag name is there. We're gonna hit create. All right, perfect. So this is created. The policy is assigned. Now if we go home, we're gonna try to create similar things. Create a new storage account. If I go ahead now create a new storage account, we shouldn't have issues. So let's see if it's gonna actually allow me. Yeah, it take a while, but now we got option to create a storage account. So if I just call it AZ104, storage, same thing here. Hmm. Okay, so now we got AZ104 storage. Everything is perfectly set up, and we're gonna need to come over here to next. Everything we're gonna leave it default because we're not really leaving to create this one. Next, next, next. So now everything is good. The only thing we need to on the tag, we're not even gonna specify anything because we're just gonna try to create this. And once we create it, we should see this filled up later on. So let's hit review create. The validation should pass, which it looks like it did. We're gonna hit create. And it might take a second, but now if I go to resources, tags, you can see inherited the cost center with the value of the tag, which is 00. So that's why those Azure policies matter. When you assign it, it will automatically inherit the policy. So no one is just able to create random things, causing you headache or administrative headache later on when figuring out which data is important, why was it created the way it is. So next, final thing we're gonna need to do is do resource lock, which is very important because this is like a think of Active Directory, accidental delete protection. Or in this case, if you don't have this checked, you could see a junior admin or be someone who's new to the Azure world deleting an important resource that you don't want to get deleted. So now, same thing, we're gonna need to go ahead and go to the settings blade on the resource group. So let's go ahead to resource group AZ104. We're gonna click on the resource group itself, and then under resource group we're gonna have the option to click on settings, and then you have locks underneath for settings. What does this mean? Anytime you configure resource lock on here, no one can delete anything, and you have to almost override this manually to do this. So let's just come over here to the add a lock name. It's gonna be RG lock. No one is gonna be able to do anything else, and then lock type is gonna be delete. We are preventing people from deleting, but they can do anything else they want to. So we're gonna need to go ahead and actually hit OK. Now that we did this, let's come over here to overview. We will attempt to delete our resource group. We're just basically have a bad day or we made a mistake. We're a junior admin. Let's hit the delete button. It tells you here resource group to be deleted is this, which is fine. This is all normal so far. Nothing different. And now if we come over here, hit delete, confirm. Yeah, you surely want to delete. It's ask you multiple times, but some people who are malicious or who are new may not read this. They just hit delete. And now the lock comes in to save our bot. Resource group saved that. They've saved us by making sure this is not deletable. So again, we went over a couple things, but they all look minor in stature, but they're very important. Especially if you're trying to keep your Azure environment secure from any accidental deletion, any malicious, from users from doing this. Again, you shouldn't even give people access to it if you really are, trying to go ahead and actually, manage it properly. But if you do it, or somebody's trying to get canned and they're trying to do malicious thing, then you could do this thing. So let me delete this now. I'm gonna clean up our resource groups and everything else for this so we can have a fresh tenant later on. So I'm gonna delete this lock prevention. And now if I go to CLI, which I am gonna go to delete everything we have so we can clean everything up. So we're gonna come over here to the option to go to CLI. On the CLI, I love to use Bash or PowerShell, whichever you want to. Let's try Bash. Same thing, same issue basically. No storage mount required. So in Bash, when it loads on the CLI, we'll type a simple command az group delete and dash dash, name, resource group name. So that's what we type. In this case, the resource group name we have is gonna be AZ104 RG2. So we're gonna replace this name of the resource group name, and we're gonna hit enter. Are you sure? Yes, we wanna do it. Allow for time to settle. This is going to take some time. By the end of it, we should see this resource group deleted completely. In fact, if we refresh it, we should see it gone soon. So, but it's in progress, as you can see, because we created a bunch of other things within the resource group, like storage account and others. And so we do have to wait for those. In fact, if you see the resource group itself, it's like there's no resource underneath of it. So we're waiting for this to do it. I find it, to be honest with you, preference wise, I like PowerShell. It's a bit faster than Bash for some reason, but we'll wait regardless. And then when it's done, we're gonna go ahead and do it. So you says it's done. Now if I refresh this, I shouldn't see this resource group anymore, and it's not there anymore. That's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you did, hit the like button. It's free. Subscribe is free, and stay tuned for more videos like this. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of the day. Peace.